you got to be in the room when President Trump got the news that the Supreme Court didn't like his tariff regime. Just tell us about the moment. Tell us about what that was like.
Yeah, well, all the governors were there. So we had Republican, Democrat governors. Trump was giving us his speech. And then I see Susie Wiles was sitting right in front of me, and staff comes in and pulls her out. And I see Rubio leave. And I looked at my phone, and I'd had a text from my chief of staff telling me what was happening. And then we see a couple other Bondi leaves. And I'm like, well, it's either that or it's something else going on.
Something else, yes.
And then they came and brought President a note while he was up there talking. He stopped and he said, so this means we lost? And he was like, oh. And he addressed us. This is horrible. I can't believe they did that. But we've got other options. So then he takes a couple questions. And you could tell him, you know, his mind was elsewhere. And he goes, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to put on a good face, but I am steaming inside.
You could tell when he was talking later. You could tell that he was mad.
And he was like, hey, I'm going to let's just wrap this up. I've got to go get a statement out on this, horrible decision. And so then the president excused himself and we wrapped up. We were pretty much at the end. We were hoping to have a little bit longer Q&A. We got a couple questions in, and then we had he obviously was going to react to that.
Fortunately for you, you don't have to set national tariff policy as governor of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has people a big trade state, right? There's a lot more trade going on for Oklahoma, not just LNG, but all kinds of stuff, that aircraft and all manner of stuff. What do you want to see on it? What do you think Congress should do? What would you like the president to do? What do you want to see on tariffs?
Well, first off, I mean, I support the president. I mean, he's using tariffs to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. It's a national security issue. It's a supply chain issue. So we applaud him for that. And we've benefited. We just landed EGA, which is the largest, or it's the first smelter that's been built in the U.S., aluminum smelter, in 45 years. And we've been working on it for several years. Trump went and closed the deal when he was over in the UAE. They're coming. But on the flip side, now they're complaining because when they bring equipment into the U.S. to actually build the widget, or in this case, make the aluminum.
And employ the
Oklahomans
yes.
and bring the supply chain closer, they're being penalized for bringing the equipment in. So that feels weird. Like we should be able to bring equipment in to make the widgets in Oklahoma or Texas or California or Michigan or wherever, because we're doing what the president wants. We're hiring jobs in Oklahoma. So that part is weird. But I agree. We have to have reciprocation. We can't let these other countries rip us off. So all that's good. The problem now is the Supreme Court has said Congress has got to do something.
Oh, well.
And now Congress can't even do a budget since the 90s.
Right.
So I have little hope, and I'm sure that's why the president would be overly frustrated, because trying to get something out of Congress, our founding fathers never thought you would have one side of Congress is always like trying to make a point with whoever's in the White House. They don't want to give them a win. We're in this gridlock period that makes no sense for the American people. Let's fix America.
Article 1 ain't what it used to be. All right. You pulled off a minor miracle by Washington standards this week. You got all 50 governors into the White House, Republicans and Democrats. Every paper wrote it up. The showdown. Donald Trump's not going to let these two Democratic governors into the White House. You found yourself stuck in the middle. You resolved it. All 50 were there. You landed the plane. How did you do that?
Well, first off, I mean, it's an honor to serve not only as the governor of Oklahoma, where I grew up and my grandparents grew up, and I'm, fourth generation Oklahoman, but now to be the chairman of the National Governor Association and represent all the governors. It's truly an honor. And I'll tell you what Americans would love to see is they would love to see some of our meetings with Republican governors and Democrat governors actually agreeing on policy. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that America is craving and wants to see, because they don't see it from Congress. They don't see it from some of the news channels. So that's important. But you know what? I just simply I said, hey, I think the president was getting bad information, quite frankly, from some of the staff. There was two meetings. There was the business meeting, and then there was the dinner. And so I just said, hey, if all 50 governors can't come to this business meeting, by essence, we can't facilitate it as the National Governor Association.
Right.
And so then they ran that I'd cancel the meeting, and President Trump called me, and And basically, I just said, hey, and he said no. And my intention is to let all the governors come. So I think there was confusion in the beginning, and so rightfully so. We got our invitations out, and it was good.
You, as they would say, you sat chilly. You didn't overreact one way or the other, and you kept faith with your members, your fellow governors, and the administration, and didn't overreact. That doesn't always happen, right? And we get a lot of overreaction, and people take advantage of the political moment frequently, right? A controversy like this is something to be taken advantage of sometimes.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about your approach, how you've managed to keep faith with Republicans and Democrats in a very tumultuous year.
Well, first off, I was kind of surprised that they elected, very conservative red state governor from Oklahoma. But I think it's just the Oklahoma way, our common sense approach, and the likability. And I don't believe that you have to work with a Democrat governor or share ideas. I don't have to, put my values aside. We can have an honest conversation and like each other and really come up with some solutions that I think what Americans are looking for. But
you and Tom Cole are having kind of a moment right now about bipartisanship and being able to work. Is there something in the water in Oklahoma?
But I don't know. Maybe so. But I enjoy it. And then here's the deal. The president has a tough job. I mean, he gets it. He's been being attacked since 2016, and my goal is my last year as governor. I wrote my vision down. It's to be joyful and joyful and joyful, and not get bitter. My last year working with my own legislature, because this job has a way of kind of breaking you down, and so I want to be joyful, and I think that comes across. And we're going to support the president, and he has a tough job to do. And we're just going to keep talking about policy and doing the right thing for Oklahomans.
I've talked to you about this before, but we have a lot of horizontal federalism in America now, where states compete against each other, which is fine. But we don't have very much vertical federalism, which is where the states exert their authority against the federal government and say, no, this is a state power. This is a 10th Amendment question. This is for the states.
Yeah.
And to have separation of power, it can't just be the states competing with each other. It has to be the states saying, no, this is a power reserved for the states. After your time as governor, after your time here at the National Governors Association, talk about the prospects for a rebirth of state power. Democrats definitely are feeling the authority of states and the power of states now in a way they weren't when Joe Biden was president.
Yeah. It's a great point. Actually, we talked about that in our governor's meeting. I'm reinstituting a federalism document that the National Governors Association had in the 90s, and then they used to update it, and we haven't looked at it in over 15 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. So literally, we just voted on in our executive committee, and then I brought it before all the governors. And so we've got Governor Stein and Governor Scott of Vermont are going to work together with some other governors to look at this document, exactly what you said. And we had the Wake Forest John Dinan, the professor, who is the expert in the country on federalism.
He sure is.
And you talk about Madison's, the Federalist Papers, 45 and 46. It talks about this. And what Americans need to realize and understand, and a lot of them do, is that our founding fathers divided power not only with the three branches, but also federal government to the states.
That's right.
And the states actually have more power.
That's right.
Than the limited government. And so that's a very important point. And I think this is a big point that I want everybody to understand, because Oklahoma doesn't want to be California. California doesn't want to be Oklahoma. And that's great. But that's why it can't be a one-size-fits-all. That's why we sued the Biden administration, because he was trying to make us like Delaware and California. Okay? And at the same sense, Delaware doesn't want to be like Florida. And so we have to either agree with this federalist idea that the states are the laboratories of democracy, and there's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
And I also remind Americans that it's the states that build schools and hire teachers and builds roads and bridges. The federal government just passes all these weird laws, and then they put handcuffs on states. We just want flexibility to actually work closer to the people. And I just think that's a good idea that we should be talking about and teaching the young people.
All right, Governor, we appreciate your time.